about Bernanke. This is about Bernanke. He has to be on that call. Forget the investors. The investors are going to do, if Bernanke listens, Bernanke needs to open the discount window. That's how bad things are out there. Bernanke needs to focus on this. Alan Greenspan told everyone to take a teaser rate and then raise the rate 17 times. And Bernanke is being an academic. It is no time to be an academic. It is time to get on the Bear Stearns call. Listen, open the darn Fed window. He has no idea how bad it is out there. He has no idea. He has no idea.
Kramer.
I have talked to the heads of almost every single one of these firms in the last 72 hours, and he has no idea what it's like out there. None! And Bill Poole has no idea what it's like out there. My people have been in this game for 25 years, and they are losing their jobs, and these firms are going to go out of business, and he's nuts! They're nuts! They know nothing!
Kramer.
I have not seen it like this since I went 5 bid for 500,000 shares of Citigroup when I got hit in 1990. This is a different kind of market, and the Fed is asleep.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Bill Poole is a shame. He's shameful.
Hold on. I know
he
you're
ought to go and
this,
read the accredited home document. At least I read the darn thing.
Hold on. I know you're passionate, and I hear you. But at the same time, a lot of people are saying this is, yes, there's certain types of mortgages that aren't available. There are all sorts of issues.
You can't get a darn loan if you're rich like me.
But Kramer, if he did what you said, which seems to me from the way you just explained yourself.
Cut the rate. Open the discount window.
Okay,
cut the rate.
If he comes out next week and cuts rates,
relieve the pressure.
You're going to have, that's going to cause Armageddon.
No, we have Armageddon. I wouldn't try to cause it. We have Armageddon. In the fixed income markets, we have Armageddon.
No, but that's not what they say.
We have Armageddon.
They say, even when I've talked to a couple bank CEOs, they don't say it's Armageddon. Well, they say it's repricing. They're very firm about that even now.
Oh, great. Okay, well, let them be calm and then have them call me on the way home like they do every night and tell me, Kramer, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to help us? Are you going to help us? Are you going to stand on the sideline like everybody else and say that it's fine? Will somebody come on TV and tell the truth about how bad it is?
But a lot of people say, these same people say, it's not Ben Bernanke and the rate that matters. The bond market now is completely separate from the rate.
It's entirely the rate.
The bond market is trading separately from the rate.
Look, we'll spend billions in Iraq to build homes. We are going to have thousands of people. We have thousands of people losing their homes right now. 14 million people took a mortgage in the last 3 years. 7 million of them took teaser rates or took piggyback rates. They will lose their homes. This is crazy.
Yes.
I am sorry to be upset about it, but you have to understand what they're saying to me off the record before I come in here every night and every day. And what I hear from these blowhard managers who act like, call someone for heaven's sake. Go call someone. I worked at fixed income at Goldman Sachs. This is not the time to be complacent.
All right.
I mean, darn, sometimes I wish I didn't know anybody so I could just sit here and say, you know what? Just go buy some Washington Mutual and take that yield. Unfortunately, I know too many people, and I'm too darn old.
You are 62.
I've just been around for too long. I mean, look, I got to tell you, he has got to listen to. He's got to call somebody. Bernanke has to call someone.
He is.
He just has to call.
I can't believe he's just sitting there in his little gilded office.
No, they're not calling anybody. Okay. And Bill Poole.
I know what you think of
Bill Poole, listen to me. There was a president by the name of Hoover, okay? And no one thinks much of him now, the great engineer.
So I bring you now a story of the future, a story I will refer back to for many years as the warning nobody paid heed to. But when it breaks, it will be the end for Wall Street and finance around the world. It is the impending collapse of Deutsche Bank, and I'm going to describe it in graphic detail from inside 60 Wall Street, the American headquarters of Deutsche Bank AG, where signs of trouble are everywhere. Begin on the 46th floor overlooking the East River. Brown boxes have been stacked in the offices of the senior-most executive in the Americas. More than 40 flights down on the trading floor, seats sit empty at mid-morning. Computer screens are black. Some who remain are openly hunting for jobs at rival banks. Their bosses know and don't mind. During a recent weekday, an executive spied junior traders enjoying beers at the nearby Full Shilling pub. It was just past 1 p.m. Older traders could be found at Cipriani on Wall Street, where the famous Bellini cocktails are served in wood-panelled rooms, or on a terrace between the stone Ionic columns. So it goes nowadays at Deutsche Bank in New York, where everybody from the executives down seems to sense that more bad news is coming from Frankfurt. The Wall Street operation was once a symbol of the German bank's vaulting ambition to go head-to-head with American finance in its own backyard. In recent years, the business has been a source of regulatory and political headaches while losing ground and talent to rivals. Bloomberg was told that Deutsche Bank now plans to tell hundreds of US equities and rates traders that they will no longer be employed there, according to people familiar with the matter. Chief Executive Officer Christian Sewing may present a major restructuring plan as early as next week, slashing as many as 20,000 positions worldwide. After a slow drip of news and rumours about potential job cuts, with limited direct communication from Sewing, a number of US staffers have grown to resent their London and Frankfurt-based counterparts, according to interviews with nearly a dozen current and former employees. Kerry McHugh, a spokeswoman for the bank, declined to comment. Executives in New York have, for more than a year, worked under the cloud of whether the US operation would be sold, gutted, or spun off. Typical internal battles over who bore certain expenses took on more weight when every unit was under a microscope. Peter Sellman, who came out of retirement in 2017 to revive the equities business, unsuccessfully lobbied Treasurer Dixit Joshi last year to move as much as €300 million of costs allocated to his unprofitable unit to the fixed income business, according to people briefed on the talks. Sewing has said consistently and publicly that he was committed to the US investment bank since taking over as CEO last year. But the new chief has been struggling to restore confidence among investors and regulators amid the bank's moribund profitability. After a failed attempt to merge with Commerzbank AG that was encouraged by Germany's own finance minister, shareholders are pushing for a turnaround plan. Many executives aren't waiting for that. Selman is now among dozens already on their way out, the people said. Zia Hook, CEO of Deutsche Bank Securities Divisions in the US, hasn't been seen at work in weeks. Tom Patrick, head of the Americas who joined the bank a decade ago and oversees the relationship with the Federal Reserve, seemed to be packing up his office, and Deutsche Bank is considering his replacement. That's left Ashley Wilson, co-head of equities trading in the Americas, in charge of restructuring the unit. Long-time traders like Brad Kurtzman, Craig Bench and Powell Fraser have also left the bank, followed by dozens of second and third-tier executives, many of whom can't find jobs elsewhere. Some US managers said that for years they advised cutting some smaller pieces of the trading business to improve profitability. As they exit, they lament that senior executives didn't heed their counsel and now need the heavy axe. 2 weeks ago, the American business got a lift with the news that it passed the Federal Reserve's annual stress test. Sewing sent a note to staff calling it, quote-unquote, a great step forward. The feeling of triumph didn't last long, replaced within hours by more reports of deep job cuts in the US. The German firm has already announced that in 2 years it will start departing the tower at 60 Wall Street that's been its home since the early 2000s for mid-town digs offering a Central Park view. As the bank's workers spill out into the financial district watering holes, a popular question is how many of them will be around to leave Wall Street.
All right, I want to talk now about Deutsche Bank a little bit more, right? For those who want a little further analysis to read, go to my blog, jackrasmus.com, where my blog post today is entitled, "Is Deutsche Bank the next Lehman Brothers?" Question mark. Yeah. Well, Deutsche Bank's the biggest bank in Europe, I believe. It's an investment bank. And it attempted several years back to challenge Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, and for global position here, right? And it's failed miserably, right? Is it a harbinger of things to come in Europe? Well, it might be. Biggest bank in Europe. We don't know how much it is exposed, or what its losses are yet, but we do know that come Sunday there's going to be a big restructuring announced for Deutsche Bank, and it's going to cut 20,000 jobs. And it's already selling off its better assets. Well, when you cut your costs by that much and you sell your better assets, it means that you're running out of money. You're running out of money capital, and you got to raise that money capital some way, either through cost cutting or selling of your assets. And of course, stock analysts know Deutsche is in trouble. Its stock is now selling only at $7 a share. And if we get more of the global speculators jumping in, they'll drive that down even further. And that's exactly what happened to Lehman Brothers in July, August of 2008. And like Lehman Brothers, Deutsche Bank is holding a large position in derivatives, derivative contracts. Derivatives were at the heart of the crash of Lehman Brothers, an AIG, which had insurance company, which had written massive amount of derivatives on bets. Derivatives, in this case, credit default swaps, are bets that the company's stock is going to decline. Well, when you make those kind of bets and speculators buy those derivatives from AIG, they're betting that the stock of Lehman was going to decline. And, of course, they went in and drove the stock down at the same time so they could collect on their dividends from AIG by making the company go bankrupt. That's what was at the heart of 2008. Okay, so as it turned out, AIG didn't have the money to pay the derivatives. They had written far more, believing that it would never happen in derivative contracts. Well, how much exposure does Deutsche Bank have to derivatives? $45 trillion in contracts, counterparty contracts, derivatives. Can it pay it off? No, there's no way Deutsche can pay off anywhere near that, especially since its income from other sources, from stock sales and IPOs and then mergers and acquisitions and all the stuff investment banks do, has been shrinking. No. Well, the bailout of Deutsche has already begun. One of the ways you bail out a bank is to merge it with another bank. They tried to merge it with Commerzbank in Germany, but that flopped for various reasons. And now they're trying to push In other words, the government's trying to push Deutsche Bank to accelerate its sell-off of its assets, which it's doing right now. And now they're going to announce the 20,000 layoffs to cut their costs. And they're also going to talk about, maybe they've already begun setting up what's called a bad bank. You see, a bad bank, in Europe they do this. They refuse to do it in the U.S. They could have. But in Europe, they do this. If a bank is in bad trouble, has a lot of bad assets, in other words, non-performing loans, the government will step in and take those loans away from the bank, those bad loans, that they're not collecting any interest on anyway, or principal, and will put it in a government-created bank called a bad bank, and take that bad stuff off of the balance sheet of the bank, Deutsche in this case, so they can survive and make loans again. And then the government slowly sells off those bad assets at some future date at pennies on the dollar, usually 10 cents on the dollar value of the asset, right? That's what happened with Royal Bank of Scotland, RBS, in England, right? And that's happened before with Scandinavian banks. It's happening right now with Italian banks. They set up a bad bank and let investors, the vultures, the hedge funds, and so forth, buy this stuff real cheap, and they hold on to it and hopes that, 5-10 years from now, the crisis will be over and they can sell it at a big profit. Well, that's what a bad bank does, and that's what's happening right now with Deutsche Bank, right? But the question is, can it succeed? If we have another recession, who are the buyers of this 45 trillion in derivative contracts, right? See, the derivatives channel is how the contagion spreads from bank to bank, financial institution to bank, etc. Who owns, and that's exactly what happened with Lehman and AIG, right? It's beginning to look eerily like Lehman AIG, even before we have a recession. Usually these bank problems appear as the recession is beginning or in the early stages of it. And that's what it looks like right now. Okay, so we watch Deutsche Bank and whether its derivatives exposure is the weak link that at some point, if we have another recession here, is transmitted throughout the credit system. All right. I want